In this lesson, we're going to cover a few different strategies on how to create a 3D sketch. A 3D sketch is going to basically be a line and arc, if you will, that's going to go in the X, Y, and Z direction. So the file that I have open is called includegeometry.ipt. It can be found in your Chapter 8 exercise folder. I'm going to start off by switching to the 3D sketch environment, and once I do that, you'll see that the panel has changed to the 3D sketch set of tools. And the first one, what I'm going to do is include geometry. And basically what this is going to do is I'm going to go around, I'm going to select the outside edges of this part. It's kind of like the project geometry tool. So I'm just going to go back and make sure that I select them all. And what I'm going to do here is we're going to actually reuse all of those edges. So I'm just going to click on Done. At this case, Return. I'm going to make a 2D sketch active on this front plane. Draw in a circle. Give that circle a dimension. And let's give it 2. Return. And let's go back. I'm going to do a sweep. Take that circle. And now for the path, I'm going to select the geometry that I included. So in this case, we'll take all the defaults. So I went and added that circular bead, if you will, all the way around. Of course, I could come back and edit that, sweep, and change the operation to a cut if I wanted to remove material. Of course, that cut in this case could have been a square or any other shape that you wanted. Now with the include geometry, if the geometry is going to change in shape, so will the included geometry. So in this case, now if I would go back and change the very first extrusion, let's get back down to our sketch. And let's change that from 50 to 75. Do an update. You'll see that our cut, in this case with the sweep, has also been updated. I'm going to now close out of this file. And the next file that I have open is called 3dintersection.ipt. It too can be found in your Chapter 8 exercise folder. And first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reuse the work plane and the cylindrical face. So at the intersection of those two is where I want to go back and create a 3D path. So again, I'm going to get back into the 3D sketch environment, and from the 3D sketch tools, I'm going to select on the 3D intersection curve tool. And for the first one, I'm going to select the cylinder, and for the second selection set, I'm going to select on the work plane, click OK. If I turn off the visibility of the work plane, you'll see I now have the geometry created at the intersection. Now that geometry that I could have been using here doesn't necessarily need to be planar. It could have been a spline, two different splines, an arc and a line, or any combination of geometry that you need. So what I'm going to do at this case, return. I'm going to turn off the visibility of that last sketch that we just created. And also in this geometry, I have some geometry that's already drawn, so I'm going to turn on the visibility for sketch 2. And you can see it's pretty simple geometry, a rectangle with a couple fillets on it. And what I want to do is I'm going to take that geometry, I want to project it onto the cylindrical face. So again, I'm going to make the 3D sketch active. And from the 3D sketch panel, slide on down, I'm going to click on the project curve to surface. So the face, in this case, is going to be our cylindrical face we're going to project onto, and the curves are going to be the rectangle and fillets. So I'm going to select them all. Now I have 3 different output methods. I can project it straight along the path to its closest point, or in this case I'm going to wrap it onto the surface. Click OK. And let's now turn off the visibility of sketch 2. We don't need it. So now that I have that geometry projected onto the cylinder, I'm going to exit out of the 3D environment. I'm going to make a 2D sketch active. And from here I'm going to go back to my origin plane, select on the YZ plane. So we can see inside the geometry. Let's go on down and click on Slice Graphics. And what I want to do now is I'm going to click on the Project Cut Edge tool to project all of the information that's on that current sketch onto the plane. And now I'll just draw a circle again. And I'll place in a dimension, just hitting D on the keyboard. I'm going to change it to a diameter of 2. Return. And let's go back again. I'm going to do a sweep. I'm going to take the circle and sweep it along our projected geometry. Again, in this case, just a join. Let's change that sweep to a cut. Very quick, very simple to go back and create that 3D sketch. In this case, we're using some existing 2D geometry. I'm going to close out of this, and let's start up a new part file. And what I want to do next here is I'm going to, again, exit out of the 2D environment, and let's get into a 3D. And what I want to do is create a 3D line. So before doing that, I'm going to switch to an isometric view, start up the line tool. The Inventor Precise toolbar pops back up here, and what I can do now is I can start to enter in information. So if I know exactly how long this line is going to be, so in this case we'll start it at 0, 0, and let's have it go 50 millimeters in the X, 25 in the Y, and let's give it a Z value of 10. Now if I scroll back down on this, you can see that's exactly where that line went. And it's also being relative to the last point drawn, and I can control that by the precise delta. So now I can continue along. I could say 25 in the X, let's go 40 in the Y, and 50 in the Z. I can also come back and I can just select on these planes just by highlighting them. And when I do that, in this case, you'll see that I placed in a 0 for the Z. So I could say we'll go 10 in the X and 20 in the Y. Let's do one on this plane. So also while you're drawing, I could have went back and did a right mouse click, and you could turn on the auto bend, and it would have been placing in a fillet along these edges here. In this case, I didn't do that. So let me show you a different way. I'm just going to exit out of the line tool, and from the 3D sketch, you'll notice I do have a bend, so I could come back and place in a bend for each of these if I wanted to. Go ahead and close it back out of that. Also with these 3D lines, we can go back and you can place dimensions in here, so I could come back later and change my mind and say, well, I really want that length to be 60. I could place in an angle between these if I want it, let's say 140. I also have constraints that I can apply. So for example, if I want that line and that line to be perpendicular, go ahead and apply that. And to finish this back off, I'm just going to exit out of the 2D sketch, or the 3D sketch environment. And let's go back and make a work plane that's going to be normal to that line and to that point. Make that the active 2D sketch. And that's really the important point here, just to make sure that you're always in the correct environment, 2D or 3D sketch. So in this case, I'm going to use project geometry. Let's project that edge onto the current plane, or active sketch, I should say. So let's draw in a circle, dimension it. And in this case, too, also, we'll do a sweep, and the path will be our geometry. So I've just created a tube run, if you will.